So if you don't already know, the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy is a romance companion novel series. I would consider it to be new adult as well. What this basically means is that there are 4 books in the series, and every single book follows a different set of characters. So there's going to be a girl and a guy main character in every single one of these books. However, they're all kind of interconnected. So in the case of the Off-Campus series, each book follows a different boy in the Briar U hockey team, which is a college that all of these people go to in the series. And the series kind of follows them and their hockey careers and their romantic relationships with these 4 girls that we get to meet in the series. So it's really fun. It's all interconnected. If you fall in love with the first couple in book 1, you'll see them again in book 2 and so on and so forth. So that's a really fun way to have like a series, in my opinion. I personally really like companion novel series. I love reading about new characters, but still having my favorites like featured in the story. So I'm really a big fan of this kind of writing style. So I really like the series for that reason. Also, I will say there is a spin-off series. So Off-Campus has 4 books, and there's also a spin-off called the Briar U series that Elle Kennedy is currently writing. There are 2 books out already, but once the whole series is out, I'll make a whole separate video about that. So I'm only going to be talking about the first 4 books, which I know some of you guys are going to be upset over because I know some of you guys are like really big fans of Briar U, but we'll talk about that a different time. So I guess for my non-spoiler section, I'm only really going to be talking about book 1 just because it's kind of like a spoiler to bring up book 2 and 3 and 4, I guess. But book 1 is about this girl named Hannah and this boy named Garrett. Hannah is a music student. She's a singer, very talented girl, and Garrett is a hockey player, also kind of a player with the girls. They don't really know each other, but one day they meet while they're in class when Garrett notices that Hannah is excelling in this class and he's failing and he needs help from her to study and get good grades. And she kind of resists him at first because she doesn't really know him and she doesn't really want to get involved with like a Briar U hockey player, but eventually they do kind of become friends and they make some arrangements and help each other out in different ways. She kind of has a crush on this one other boy in the class and wants advice. He wants help with his, tests and stuff like that. So they kind of have an arrangement going on. More stuff obviously does happen and it gets really intense and crazy, and obviously a romance blossoms later on. I think that's kind of obvious with any romance kind of book. You can kind of just assume that. But every single book follows a different set of characters in their romantic relationship, and they're all super cute and adorable. Literally every single one of the boys is so book boyfriend worthy. They're all so cute in different ways and have really great attributes. You guys may or may not see me on Twitter like basically daily talking about Dean DeLaurentis, who's from book 3. He's my all-time favorite. It's really fun in that way. I love talking with you guys about which one's your favorite and who your favorite boy is and all that kind of stuff. But overall, the series is super fun, super quick reads for me. Honestly, I can fly through anything that's like new adult romance to begin with, but they're all super light, do have some heavier themes in them, especially the first one. So if you have any questions about that, let me know. I'll put trigger warnings in the description as I always do. But yeah, there's a little bit of heavier stuff that goes on in the first book, but for the most part, they're pretty lighthearted books, but they do have like a certain depth to them that not all romance books carry. The writing is really good. So I overall think it's like a very solid companion novel romance series. So if you're looking for one to check into and you want something new to read and you want to get like into a series maybe so you have a lot of reading material, I highly recommend Off-Campus. I have so many people that can vouch that it's a wonderful series, and I think you guys will like it. If you like my book recommendations for the most part, I have a feeling this is going to be one of your new favorite series. So if you've not read it, please go check it out. I want to talk about it with you so we can fangirl about all the boys at Briar U and it'll be really awesome. So definitely go check out the series if you've not already. But for now, I think I'm going to get into my spoilery thoughts about the rest of the series. So yeah. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, I read the series a while ago. I do constantly go back and relook at like my favorite scenes and little bits and pieces that I love, but I did read the series a little bit ago, so it's kind of hard to just like straight up book talk 4 books in one video as well. So I'm just gonna kind of go through and tell you guys some of my favorite bits and pieces from the series, and I guess I'll go like in order. So starting with first book, The Deal, Garrett and Hannah. I love them both so much. Garrett is just like that perfect, wholesome book boyfriend who like seems like a player from the outside, but he actually is like super sweet and has always been super sweet. There's really no hardness to him. But I loved their relationship so much, the progression of it, the way that he was like so soft with her and just wanted to help her, especially finding out about her past. And it was just like so special and so unexpected for like a series like this, which is why I think it really like grabbed me in. I didn't expect Elle Kennedy to go into the series and talk about like actual serious issues. So it was kind of refreshing to read that in a new adult book. So I really did appreciate that, and I'm really glad the way she addressed it was done well in my opinion. And I don't know, I just love Hannah and Garrett so much. They had to go through so much as a couple, all the stuff with his dad. My heart literally broke for them when she breaks up with him. That literally was so horrible. Like, she didn't know what to do. Like, she didn't have any other options. I felt so horrible for him. He had no idea, but obviously they made it work by the end, got back together. So cute. I just love them so much. I think a really big reoccurring theme with me in this series is that like I read the first book and I was like, it's so good. And then I got to the second book and I was like, oh my God, but Logan, like I think I like Logan more than I like Garrett. And then I read the third book and I was like, Dean, like I love Dean so much more than everybody else. So it's just like they got better and better in my opinion. I know everybody has like their picks when it comes to the boys, but personally Dean is my favorite. But going back to book 2, I really love book 2. It's probably my second favorite in the series. Logan is super special to me because he's just like that goofy guy. I always love like the funny like friend sidekick character, and that's exactly what he was like. And I also loved Grace so much more than I anticipated. Personally, like I love Hannah, but I feel like she doesn't really have any quality that like sets her apart or makes her like super interesting. I hope that's not offensive. I do love her and she's very cute, love her, but there's something about Grace, her little like finicky like character traits and like quirkiness, the way she just like goes on little rants. It was just like really funny and relatable to me, and I really appreciated her character. And I really liked their story. The whole like him showing up at her room thing just like really grabbed me from the beginning of this series, and then the relationship that progressed from there. Obviously they have like that super long break because she's questioning their relationship, and that was super hard to read because like we knew that he genuinely really liked her, and it was so hard because she was giving him such a horrible time about it, but it all ended up working out in the end for them, which again, just love them. When he like confesses his love to her over the radio, I genuinely was like, he's so sweet. I love him so much. And it was just like a perfect finish to the book. I'm obsessed. Obviously, like I said, Dean De Laurentiis, my all-time fave. You guys know this. And first of all, if any of you guys out there are like watching this knowing like, okay, the only reason you like Dean is because you fan cast Matthew Noska as Dean and he's like your favorite person in the world, I know, and my answer to you is that I actually read the book before I even knew who Matthew Noska was, so we can't really go there and say I only like Dean because he looks like Matthew Noska, because that's not true. I'm always like, whenever I read a companion novel series, I always like the boy that's like the bad boy or like the mean one or like the hardest of them all, if that makes sense. And I knew like going into this book that I was gonna like Dean just because he seemed like the craziest like from book 1, and so I knew I would like him. I also really love Elle. I think she's super cool, doesn't take shit from anybody, and I just really appreciate her character. So I knew I would like both of them going into this relationship. I do like the like good girl bad boy thing, but I love like bad girl bad boy together. It's just like so hard. So I really appreciated their relationship in that aspect. I also just really like Dean. He's so hilarious, so outspoken. Both of them together are just like a dream couple in my opinion. I cannot deal with it. I like the progression of their relationship as well. I think in the first 2 books, it's very much like they start as like a no strings relationship and then have feelings for each other. But in this book specifically, it was like they were intentionally trying to keep it a secret from everybody. But then we get to that scene where Elle talks to Sean and he says all that offensive stuff about her. And then she just asks Hannah if she'll call Dean for her. And it all kind of comes up that like her and Dean have been together. And Dean ends up telling her like, no, like we're together, like we're a couple. I just love them so much. He's so sweet. I loved a ton of aspects of this book. I loved Dean being the coach of like the Little League hockey players. I thought that was so adorable. Him and his relationship with the girl. I think her name was Dakota. I could be wrong. Is it Dakota? I don't know. We'll see. Him and her, super cute. Loved that. And then obviously we have like the big bomb drop of Beau's death, which genuinely made me so sad. I was really hoping for like a Beau book, and then he died. And I was like, oh my God, it hit me so hard. I literally like cried reading this book. So sad, and it hit Dean so horribly. and obviously affected his and Allie's relationship a lot because he was just partying and slacking off and doing drugs and not showing up to her play, which literally broke my heart when that happened. And so she broke it off with him, which I personally was like, I understand. I know some people think she was kind of brutal towards him, but genuinely he was taking like weeks and he couldn't get it together, and it just wasn't a good situation. So I feel like it was like meant to happen that way with them taking the break, and then obviously they get back together and it's so perfect, and I just love them so much, honestly. Like, I don't know what it is about them. I just love their relationship. Some other funny stuff from that book. I know everybody told me on my Twitter to bring up the scene with him, Allie, and Winston in the bathtub, if you know what I'm talking about. And then Logan walks in and they're all like teasing Dean for weeks because of the dildo. Like, literally the funniest thing ever. Like, I can't. That's like just so funny and perfect, and just like, I'm obsessed. It's so hilarious. And then we have the last book in the series about Sabrina and Tucker. This book was interesting because obviously you finish the end of book 3 and it talks about Tucker already then and there being in this relationship with Sabrina and her being pregnant. So then you go into the final book and it's like a retelling of the 3rd book, but from Tucker's perspective, because it's like the same timeline, I guess. And I was kind of apprehensive going in. You do see hints of Sabrina throughout the series before you get to her book, and she didn't seem like that exciting to read about. She did kind of have an attitude on her. And Tucker is very like MIA for like the first 3 books of the series. You don't see a ton from him. What you see is just like bits and pieces of him like hanging out at the house, or like doing the dishes, or like random things like that. So you don't really get a full grasp of him at all until you read his book, which I think is like a super important point to drive home, because going into Logan and Dean's books, I was like pretty excited already because I did have like a decent understanding of who they were as characters. But with Tucker, I was kind of like, I don't know how this book's gonna go, because like I don't really know how I feel about him. But it ended up being super wonderful. I loved the book so much. Tucker and Sabrina's relationship was so perfect, and just the whole aspect of like the pregnancy really brought in like a new dynamic to the series that we hadn't seen. I see a lot of people complaining that the first 3 books are super similar to each other, and while I do think they are, I think the characters are what set them apart. But when you get to the 4th book, you can't deny that it's like very different. So I really appreciated the book. I loved hearing more about Sabrina's background. Obviously, if you just read the first 3 books, she just seems like a bitch, honestly. But when you get to her book and you realize all of the stress that she goes through with her living situation and her family, and then obviously the pregnancy and Harvard and everything that kind of gets piled on top of her, you can understand why she is the way she is, and it kind of gives you a little more insight in that way. So I was really thankful of that because it made me like her more. I also really enjoyed reading more about Tucker. I feel like if you didn't read his book, you wouldn't know how much of a softie he is and how great he actually is like in a relationship and with Sabrina, and all he wanted to do was help her and make things easy for her. And I just really liked the whole evolution of the story, like him trying to kind of impress her, her not knowing where their relationship was really at. He gets the apartment, he gets the business, the whole situation with his mom, like it just all tied together really well. Obviously the baby, Jamie, so cute. I don't know, I'm just like obsessed with them, their little family, it's so cute. I just feel like the last book really ties the series together well. We get to see the little glimpse into the future of Logan and Garrett playing for the Bruins, which rep my team. I also love this series just because it takes place in Massachusetts, and I'm from Massachusetts, and like where they describe Briar being, it's like where I live, so I'm kind of obsessed with that. But I just love seeing the little glimpse of them at the game with Jamie and Dean being a coach for the New York school. It's all really cute. Obviously, if you continue on with the Briar U series, you get to see a little bit more of these characters. They do show up here and there. So if you haven't read the Briar U series yet or started it, I definitely recommend it. The first 2 books are out and they're both really, really good.